Welcome to the Marine Corps Movie Minute, where we discuss the movie Heartbreak Ridge 1 minute at a time. I am your co host, Brian Lockhart,
And I am Jack Perry.
and today we are discussing minute 4 of the movie Heartbreak Ridge. Minute 4 begins with a soldier on a stretcher being taken off a Jeep. The minute ends with a police officer walking towards a jail cell. All right, so Perry, what do you got for minute 4? Let's get into the movie.
Um, so just kind of looking through some of the scenes, look like we're still kind of fading from what looks like either the Korean War. I think we established that mainly it's about the Korean War, but I don't know. My feelings maybe it's just when we grew up was that there's probably some Vietnam, but a lot of the kids are wearing coats and stuff, and I don't think it got very cold in Vietnam, so Korea it is. But anyway, yeah, there's like wounded GIs, a couple of them all smoking cigarettes and like chatting with their buddies and getting loaded up, like Cassavac out. It's just standard war footage, just kind of establishing the theme that this is more or less a war movie.
Yeah, as we discussed like last minute, I believe we were talking about how just these guys look like they've been through hell,
Yeah,
and the song "See a Heartbreak" is playing over it, which seems appropriate. About halfway through the minute, just kind of jump ahead, they switch from showing the GIs being all beat up to civilians being basically refugees, or like you said, you
yeah,
saw them in coats. They end with a child crying right as "See a Heartbreak" ends.
yep,
That song ends right with that kid crying, and it's almost like a brief freeze frame before they move
yeah,
on.
yeah, and then the fade to it looks like just a city, like larger buildings.
Yeah,
Um,
about the halfway mark, again, when they switch from the civilians, they show a little bit of that, and then yeah, as the minute's starting to wrap up, it switches
mhm.
to, well, we don't know this, but I guess we can assume it's a city jail or city, court area, because it ends with a police officer walking towards a jail cell. So we have to assume, like, now we're into the actual movie where we fade out of Korea footage. We're still
Yeah.
in black and white, but we fade into a helicopter shot of, like, yeah, like you said,
Mhm.
a city block, and then we end up in a police station where guys handing off some papers, and it shows that it's July, the weekend of July 20th, 21st.
Yep.
That's 1983. It says it's 1983 as well.
Yeah, real briefly, yep.
So it's a period piece. The movie is filmed in '86. It takes place in '83. So it's definitely a period film.
Yeah.
Grenada took place on, or started on October 25th, 1986. So I'm not sorry, not 1986, 1983.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
I'm already confused by the timeline. So what is that? 3 months? You know,
uh yeah, July,
August, September,
yeah, about yeah,
October.
about
Yeah, so
about
about
3 or 4 months, yeah.
yeah. So we're meeting. Well, we don't know what we're meeting. We're getting a date and establishing a time
Yeah.
of basically the what we see in the movie takes place over 3 months until the end.
Yeah, I never even realized that at the time. And now that doing it, I guess that's the cool thing about picking this movie apart minute by minute is you get to really kind of investigate stuff that you wouldn't have paid attention to before.
To kind of jump back to the beginning of the minute, I noticed that it said this was, I'm going to butcher names because I'm terrible at it, but it was written by James Carabatsos, and so I was curious about what he's written before, and I found out he wrote Hamburger Hill, another war
Really?
movie. Yeah, that is a Vietnam movie.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, Hamburger Hill's a good one too, man. I haven't seen that one in a long time either. But yeah, that's kind of ironic too that you said that originally this was supposed to have been an army movie. So, was there anything in your research that kind of pointed that this guy maybe was a vet?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I thought I have in my notes that he was in the First Air Cavalry Division.
Oh wow,
He actually had, and from '68 to '69, so he was involved, and Hamburger Hill is based on a real battle.
right.
That also came out in '86. He actually had three movies come out in '86. He had Heartbreak Ridge, Hamburger Hill, so two war movies, and then a movie called No Mercy with Richard Gere and Kim Basinger.
Yeah, I kind of remember. Yeah, maybe that might have been on Cinemax late at night.
Right, right, and one of those is not like the others.
Yeah, yeah. One to clean the palate.
So he probably got his. I'm guessing he got this job of writing this for a couple reasons, because obviously, so being a Vietnam vet, he knew hopefully he knows what he's talking about when it comes to war films.
Yeah.
But he had actually written a movie, and I'm not sure if it was a real movie or a TV movie called Heroes in 1977 about a Vietnam vet suffering from PTSD. That I don't really think they talked about PTSD exactly back then.
No, shell shock.
But it starred Fonzie, Henry Winkler.
Really?
Yeah, it had Sally Field and Harrison Ford actually.
Oh, wow.
So I'm guessing, that obviously that was what 9 years before Heartbreak Ridge came out. So he probably got a little credibility as far as writing something that had to do with soldiers
Yeah.
and of course his life experience.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I kinda curious to see what else he's done, or what other stuff, little projects. Is he still is well, did you see, is he still doing any writing? Is he still involved in the film industry, or has he kinda moved on?
The last I saw that he did a project in 2001 called the Lost Battalion, which was a World War One TV movie with Rick Schroeder in it.
Hmm,
So
okay.
I haven't seen too much else, but he wrote some more war stuff. I'm not sure if he's even alive or dead. I guess I should have looked that up at this point.
Yeah. Well, that'll give us something to do later on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just thought that was interesting about who wrote this film. So later on, towards the end of the minute, it pops up, the produced and directed by Clint Eastwood credit. Of course, this is his movie. We already talked about some of our favorite movies of his. We mostly talked about the ones he starred in.
Right.
He's done plenty of movies that he starred and directed in, and of course, he's done plenty where he's just directed. More, of course, more recently, he's just directing.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, preparing notes for this minute, I saw Richard Jewell's coming out. His new movie. I think that's the name of it, Richard Jewell.
Yeah, about the Atlanta bombing during the Olympics, right?
Right. Yeah, and how of course, this movie focuses on how they blame Richard Jewell when he was innocent.
Right.
And his, his fighting back and all that stuff, and having his name tarnished in the media and all that good stuff. But actually, what one neat thing I found about it is he brought Clint Eastwood, that is, brought the movie to Camp Pendleton to show some Marines the film.
Oh, this film?
Yeah, the Richard Jewell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he brought the film to them like just the other day.
Oh, wow.
He had a premiere for them, and he said this was the first time he's been back to Camp Pendleton since filming Heartbreak Ridge. So that was a neat. I was like, oh, isn't that fortuitous that
Yeah.
we have something to talk about?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, all those Marines, regardless of whether or not this is an officially sanctioned, blessed, Marine Corps movie, I know a lot of Marines just love this movie because, I mean, accurate or not, it does kind of capture, some of the cockiness that the Marines have. Maybe not the professionalism, but the cockiness, definitely the cockiness.
Well, again, we've talked about it's a fun movie, it's a quotable movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even though we talked about it being disavowed, when Clint Eastwood was on Camp Pendleton, they introduced him as Tom Highway.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right. So like we were saying too, we were speculating, we're like, yeah, we're pretty sure Marines today probably do like him. We can't speak for them, but the fact that they said, hey, I'm bringing back Gunny High, they literally announced, I'm introducing Gunny Highway, and they introduced him as Gunnery Sergeant Tom Highway, and he felt, he brought the movie to them on a Marine Corps base, so there must have been something there.
Yeah.
Uh, there's definitely an affection there, or on both, probably on both sides. So
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back again to the middle part when we were talking about the civilians,
Yeah.
because there's one thing I did want to make references, like 5 million people died in the Korean War, and more than half were civilians. It was a higher rate of casualties than both World War II and Vietnam. So this was definitely a bloody war, which all these pictures of the refugees, the Korean people, and the soldiers that we're seeing getting carried out in stretchers and being injured. I mean, that was real life. More than 40,000 Americans were killed and 100,000 were wounded.
Yeah.
So again, that's a lot.
Well, you look too, I mean, historically, wars were prosecuted differently then. I think this is probably one of the transitional times when we, started to learn it, just like World War II, we would bomb the hell out of Germany and it was German, like, yeah, there were military targets there, but it was surrounded by, homes and businesses, things like that. It was about breaking the will of whoever it was that you were fighting against. And now, now we really, we have the technology that allows us to try and, focus on not killing innocents, which, never was ideal, but that was just the way wars were fought. It was this bomb goes boom, and if it does what it's supposed to, it's going to destroy this and then everything around it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wouldn't be uncommon at all that yeah, civilian, casualties or, the impact to innocence would be pretty high.
Well, especially during World War II, as an example, they were trying to destroy the infrastructure. Well, part of the infrastructure is factories and people work in factories.
Right.
People building roads, building,
Bridges.
bridges, exactly. Or people had to build tanks and ammunition. Like you
R
bomb that stuff so the enemy cannot produce that stuff. And again, they're in neighborhoods. People have to work there.
Yep.
And honestly, like you said, the technology was not developed yet where you could do your best to prevent civilian casualties. I
Right.
mean, I don't think you're never going to get rid of that,
Yeah. I
unfortunately. But they develop the technology the best they can and come up with rules of engagement to you know mitigate that as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, there was those factories were civilian ran. They may have been military, but there was no different than like our old automotive plants being ran by all the women, wives, and stuff of all the soldiers. Because the GIs and all the soldiers were out fighting. They weren't building stuff, so they were all civilian ran. They may have been military targets, but they would have been, it was more or less an auto factory.
And of course, then you couple like the fact that during Korea, like they talked about the frigid cold, so many people
Mm,
got sick, and from that, and frostbite was a big issue.
yeah,
And middle of a war torn country that's not economically thriving, yes, you're going to unfortunately have a lot of people affected by this in a very, very negative way,
right,
and death,
right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, the movement of soldiers, either, we'll call them good guys or bad guys. Um, Anybody that's sitting, in the little village is going to be affected, regardless of what side that they were on, Americans and South Koreans marching up north. And I don't really remember, I know it makes me horrible, but I don't even remember the South Korean involvement, like how involved they were with the American fighting forces. But,
I believe they were pretty heavily involved.
okay. Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, we were fighting with, for South Korea. But then you got, the Chinese and the North Koreans, coming down from the north, and the same
Right.
thing, same little village, you know. See them coming, see them going. So,
Yeah. So, well, I don't have much else for this minute.
nah.
We're getting into the actual movie, as after transition to the Clint Eastwood credit, but not much is happening. It's just a black and white guy in a police station, and that's it. We get a date, and we go from there. So, do you have anything else for this minute? We could wrap this up pretty quick.
No, I don't have anything at all.
All right. Well, thanks, Perry. I appreciate you joining me for minute four. Going to ask everybody to join us on Wednesday. We'll jump in and do minute five.
All right, man. I guess we'll talk then.
All right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on Wednesday.